we got Bernie.
Don't screw it up, Kate. Come on.
The little fan club over there.
Okay.
Don't be nervous. I promise.
I mean, I get to speak with Sir. I'm already a little nervous.
John, do I need to prompt anyone or just go for it? Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am very excited to be here at the Agri-Food Pavilion. Hello to anyone joining online. We are going to have a great discussion today around making agriculture more farmer-centric, and I'm excited to introduce my two guests. I have Keith Agawada, CEO and founder of Producers Trust, and I have Vijay Kumar, Executive Vice Chairman of RYSS, the Community Managed Natural Farming Movement in Andhra Pradesh. I am Kenzie Wade, filling in for Danielle Nuremberg, President of Food Tank. Food Tank is a nonprofit food systems research and advocacy organization devoted to storytelling around the food system. So excited to kick it off around really focusing on farmers today on the great Food and Agriculture Day at COP. So Vijay, could you start us off by telling everyone more about community managed farming? What does that look like, and specifically natural farming?
Yeah, so the community is very important. We mean, by community here, we mean women farmers specifically, and men through women farmers. This is part of a family. So women are at driving this program, and the origin of this has been a very concerted effort by the government of Andhra Pradesh that for comprehensive poverty eradication in the rural areas, women need to be organized. This happened about 23 years ago, year 2000, when we started this large-scale organizing of women around thrift, credit, livelihoods, financial inclusion, social inclusion. So this was, organizing them became an end in itself. It's not with a specific purpose. So these are neighborhood groups sharing common bonds. So they come together, they meet regularly, take collective action, support each other. It was not for agriculture or for a particular enterprise. It was as an end in itself. And these women's groups, they were able to do some very extraordinary things in terms of inspiring each other, so that over a period of 10 years, we took it to 11.5 million rural women in Andhra Pradesh. And they were able to access credit from the banks, so collateral-free credit. And today, the program has grown much more. So a woman who is part of a self-help group is able to access 4 times money from the bank than her husband with collateral. So that's the kind of empowerment that has happened on financing itself. When this was happening, we looked at 70% of their investment was for agriculture. And then they started saying, agriculture is not viable, we are losing money, we are spending a lot on synthetic chemicals, fertilizers, pesticides, that's harming our health. So in 2004, with the help of some very good non-governmental organizations, we took this technology to the women. And through them, we had a very large program called non-chemical pest management. And they proved experts in managing the program, in benefiting from it, taking it to other people. So then we thought pest management is not enough, we have to tackle all other issues. So that's how the new program, the AP Community Managed Natural Farming, was initiated in 2016 to be a comprehensive solution to farming from many dimensions. So first and foremost, it builds on a very good set of practices in India. So in India, the program around that time was also called zero budget natural farming. And that's a very catchy phrase, that means it doesn't cost you anything to do farming. And it had a set of practices which minimized the cost of cultivation, at the same time enhanced incomes for the farmers. So we took those practices and then tried to go into the science behind it. And then we realized there was a great science behind it. So now we know why those practices are there. And then we had some very interesting technology breakthroughs. But by being close to nature, so one of our biggest breakthroughs has been that when we follow these natural farming principles, we don't need so much of organic manures. See, one of the constraints in transitioning to organic farming has been that, people are scared that, they need to bring in some 10 tons, 15 tons, or 20 tons of farmyard manure, organic manures, vermicompost, whereas previously some 200, 300 kilograms of the chemical fertilizer would have been enough. So there was a big barrier. So when we went into the science, when we understood what is the key to this, we realized that we've been foolish all along. The plants are much more intelligent than us. In the forest, nobody is applying any manure, organic manure, chemical fertilizers, and plants came much before us. So the natural mechanism of the plants, by harnessing sunlight, in the presence of sunlight, carbon dioxide, water, making food out of that. So plants were very cleverly pushing 30% of the food into the soil. And that was a signal to the microbes to bring all the nutrient that a plant requires. And that's a beautiful system. And so then we realized that we need this, organic fermented natural products more as inoculum. So we just need some 5% of what was previously used in traditional agriculture, 10 tons, 20 tons per acre. Instead of that, we just need 400 kilograms per crop. So that was the big breakthrough. Then it removed the entry barriers. It enabled us to take it very fast. So there have been the most important was the social innovation, building the institutions of women. The second was to go deep into the science, but respecting Mother Nature, understanding the principles of Mother Nature. But the third piece was, okay, you have the knowledge and you have people ready to transform. How does this knowledge reach them? So that was a very major innovation in knowledge dissemination. So we said that, we understood that best practicing farmers are the best trainers. So our job became simple. We had to identify champions among the farmers who were ready to share their knowledge with others. So we got these 3 pillars together, 3 levers, I would say. And also the other innovation was changing the government program. That was easy for me because I am from government. So tweaking the program so that it's more government in partnership with farmers, in partnership with women. And government provided the resources for this innovation. So scaling happens when government gets involved with resources.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate just how holistic your approach is. You're always talking about people and the environment together continuously, and then that need for knowledge and then policy always as the key thread in between them. Keith, can I turn to you for a moment? Can you share with us more about what Producers Trust does and how you work with farmers and others in other countries?
Yeah, thanks, Kenzie. And I think to start, it's such an honor to be sharing a moment here with Sir, because so much of Producers Trust and how we've evolved and grown has been humbling experiences of just deep learning, being in Andhra Pradesh with Sir, and especially with the farmers and the champion farmers on the ground who really school me. And so Producers Trust, we're in service of farmers, and we look for creative ways to bring more value back to farmers through this lens of organizing data and content and connecting products and data to market. And then exploring ways in which the greater ecosystem can work more together to scale models that are functioning on the ground. And when we created one of our tools called Storybird, which is an end-to-end storytelling traceability so that consumers can know about the farmers and connect back to the source, feel trust and confidence. And I was in a rural village in Andhra Pradesh, and I was showing this tool to farmers. I said, look, one day we're gonna have your jaggery, your rice, and someone in California is gonna scan a package of that and get to see your farming practices, how you grow, and it's just gonna be amazing for the consumer. And someone stood up and they're like, yeah, that's all good, but I wanna see the person who's eating my rice. And that was one of the most, like, wait, what? Because this whole time I'm just with my Western mind thinking like my hippie friends in California are gonna love to see that rice paddy and how they're using, cow manure and fermenting it and doing all this crazy stuff. And it was actually more important, at least to this individual, but I imagine others, to know who is that person who gets to appreciate this product and who are they and what are they doing? And I realized two things in that moment. First, it's a two-way connection. And then secondly, something that we talk about a lot is that this is not about the market helping farmers. They're already doing well without the premium. Through their transition, they're healthier, they're happier, they have pride, they have dignity, and they're doing great. I think it's really about the consumers or the people eating the product being healthier and being connected into a supply chain that they can feel really, really great about consuming. And so it really shifted how I look, not just in this supply chain, but all supply chains around the world where we have now 5,000 organizations. And I realized, it's really the consumer that has the honor and that really should be feeling that gratitude to eat well, eat nutritiously, and especially when we talk about natural farming, understanding what are those health benefits. I've been able to visit schools in the district and hear the stories directly from the students who told me, I used to have migraines, I used to have anemia, I used to miss school all the time because I didn't have good lunches, and now that they have one meal a day provided that's completely regenerative, no more absences. They feel better. They're not late to school, they don't miss school. And so I think so often we think, which is understandable, that, oh, poor farmer, because they're poor and struggling to be a farmer. But in this case, these farmers look a lot happier than the people I know in the United States. And it's actually, for us, how can we start to connect more to the land, to purpose, to dignity, to value through connecting in this way?
Great, that's such a good perspective. How did you two meet? Can you tell us a little bit about that story?
I'll share my perspective. So I was about 2 years into starting Producers Trust, which we called Producers Market at the time. We probably had 8 or 10 employees. And I got introduced to Satya Chapati, who is the Assistant Secretary General. And I was kind of like, why does this guy want to take a meeting with me? He's like this big UN guy. We're just an early stage startup. And I went into his office. I shared what we want to do. And he said, do you want to go to India? I was like, yes. He's like, okay. Tell me when you've booked a flight to Vijayawada, and we'll take care of the rest. And I told my team, I'm like, look, this guy who seems really important at the UN told me I should go to India in this random place, and that would be really good. And my team's like, you're crazy, Keith. Like, what are you doing flying to India? Like, what are we going to do? But something in my intuition, without even knowing what was happening there, without even researching it, to be honest, I just decided, you know what, I'm going to go. And so I booked a flight, and his team picked me up at the airport, and then spent 2 days visiting these farmers, and I was like, this is insane. I can't believe this is happening. And then I got to go in the office, and eventually I met Sir. And actually, before I pass it to Vijay, one time, because I became very good friends with Satya, and I was out to dinner with him, I said, Satya, I have to ask you a question. You know all these big companies who are so successful, and they do all these things with farmers. Why would you bring me as this early stage startup to go meet with Vijay? He goes, it's simple, Keith. You're not full of it.
Vijay, is he full of it? Tell us.
But before that, I wanted to build on Keith's point. I really liked what he said. There's the consumers who should value this. And I remember when I used to go to the farmers telling them to move to natural farming, there will always be discussions on we need a higher price. So I used to ask them, okay, have your costs come down? Yes. Are you producing more? Yes. Are you healthy? Yes. Then why do you need a higher price? Then somebody smart, he said, no, we are producing something which is good, and if it gets mixed up with food which is not good, then all our effort is going waste. So we would need to have a separate chain so that people who are eating our food really benefit. And it connects with what you said when he said, look, I want to know who is consuming my food. And that is the argument they give me. And whenever somebody asks for a higher price, I normally scold them. Because what will the poor people eat? Because invariably after my meeting with the farmers, and this discussion always used to come in the initial years. Now nobody asks me. In the initial years. Then just when I'm leaving, there'll be some women and others who will come and say, if prices go up, and what will we eat? So one general norm here is within the village, whoever wants to buy from these producers, there's no premium. That's a kind of a rule they have set for themselves. Even the vegetables they grow, they don't charge any premium to people in their own village, and hardly any premium when they go outside. So what you said really connects with what they have been arguing with me. Okay, you say there's no premium, but you know, my food should not get mixed up with others. So there should be, and also the health dimension. I met hundreds of farmers, women, men, and when I talk to women, they tell me how their health has improved. And when I talk to men, they tell me how much the income they have gained. So, you see the contrast. Because then I have to prod the women, are you getting more income? Ah, yes, sir, but my health has improved. So, again, the perspective. And, no, Keith, I mean, it's very, very interesting, and it's been a great friendship all along because of the value system he has, the value system of the organization, that they are going, and the name itself, Producers Trust. So the purpose of the organization to bring real value, and at the same time, transparency in the chain, so that nobody is shortchanged, neither the producer nor the consumer. So the person, the institution, and their philosophy. So that's what I admire.
So as we close out COP a little bit and we start thinking about the challenges that we're facing, but also the opportunities, we talked a little bit about consumers. What other challenges do you see, and what are some opportunities that maybe you've taken away from this COP or have just been thinking about as we're coming to a close?
No, there will always be challenges, but we should not be looking at challenges. If we fail, then nothing can save us. So regardless of the challenges, we have to win. Farmers' livelihoods, people's health, environmental health, they have to be secured. So it's a question of life or death. There will always be challenges. But the end goal should be very clear. What am I going to answer my child or my grandchildren? So I should be, and I should also be clear what I answer God above when I go there. So if we know something, if we know that it's working, then I see everybody's responsibility to take it. Can't discuss challenges. I don't think so.
Yeah, and just to build on what was shared before in this last comment, the integrity and authenticity of the work that's happening on the ground, it's so important that that's valued. And so the 9 principles of natural farming, and if you go to the communities, they make mandalas of the 9 principles and use different seeds to represent things. And there's so much authenticity and integrity in the program that as it moves across the supply chain, that same integrity should stay. And again, what I've learned through the visits and the constant work that we're putting ourselves through to try to make sense of such an incredibly simple yet complex program is the ability for the authenticity to move alongside the product. And trying to understand how to do that in a way that incentivizes, but also builds new capacity and new value to the farmers as extension services and to the community who can organize data and help to make sure that the 9 principles itself are valued and protected so that those who move into that program, whether it's in Andhra Pradesh or elsewhere, that they can feel value for their work across the supply chain. And what we're learning is that if we can accomplish the integrity and authenticity of the 9 principles across the supply chain, that same data can be repurposed and valued to many other stakeholders across the supply chain. And so we're really starting to just scratch the surface of the standard internally of a farming program that's doing great work, and not just being in service, which is too often the case, to the downstream brands and retailers and distributors that often, or traders who control the supply chain, but being in service to actually the farmers on the ground and allowing the repurpose of data or the downstream supply chain continue to be in service to farmers. And finding the unlock with the brands, with the retailers, who will also value that principle, not just value compliance or value a premium to a consumer, but value humanity, and letting that become the culture of commerce and capitalism.
Can either of you tell us a little bit more about those 9 principles? Just a little bit of context. And then also, is this something that fits all global contexts? Is this something unique to your region?
No, it's a distillation of principles across the world. There may be, some may reduce it to 5, some may reduce it, some may have only 6, 7, but in our context, the principles are universal. So the first and foremost one is to keep a living root, green cover throughout the year. Because we know that root exudates are the ones who are triggering the nutrient cycling. The second one is crop diversity. So no monocropping. The more the diversity, the better the nutrient availability to each crop, and also greater the amount of carbon getting into the soil. And also better for the farmer because it's a built-in insurance. So the crop diversity is good on several ways. And that's very key. For 1 and 2 can be combined, but I've kept them separate. The third one is minimizing tillage. The fourth one is to keep the soil covered at all times, either with living crops or with crop residue. Then the fifth one is using farmers' own seeds or using indigenous seeds. The sixth one is to integrate animals into farming. So livestock, poultry, into farming. The seventh is the use of biostimulants. So no fertilizer, biostimulants to trigger the soil biology. Eighth is use of botanical pesticides and also crop diversity for pest management. And the ninth I write in red letters, no synthetic fertilizer, pesticide, herbicide, weedicide. They're very simple, but at the same time, there's a lot of science behind it, and it also makes a lot of economic sense. Yeah?
Keith, can you tell us a little bit more about this, what this looks like on a more global scale too? So do you work with farmers in other contexts? What do you see there?
Yeah, I mean, we're working with communities of farmers around the world, and what I continue to learn is that it's not the farming practices that's differentiating this movement. Yes, the farming practices are great, but it's the women's self-help groups and the community network and the strength of the community. And you go into a meeting of the natural farmers and they sing a pledge to natural farming. It's cultural. And they have other songs and dances specifically for celebrating Mother Earth. And so it's a cultural movement, and it's also a deep connection between each individual and the purpose of what they're doing, and then the community that helps support it around. So understanding the 9 principles, you could learn about it in a few hours. And you can go into the depths. It might take you a few years or a few lifetimes of each principle, right? But it's the community structures that actually is going to scale the movement. And I'm convinced of it because I see farmers who do the 9 principles, but it's a farmer here, a farmer there, and you might have, 1% of a community or 1% of a state that's doing organic agriculture. And in Andhra Pradesh, if you're at 10%, well, how did that happen? Right? It's not because they had more information to these 9 simple principles. It's because there was a community driving it. So that's the difference that I'm seeing in terms of the scale up of regenerative agriculture or natural farming, that you'll find one very passionate individual who's really excited about regenerative agriculture, and that person gets into it. And maybe they convince their neighbor or their friend, and then you have a few people show up at the farmer's market. But it hasn't become endemic. It's not the whole community is just doing regenerative agriculture and all the schools are eating regenerative food. So I think that's the spark. That's the invisible kind of aspect of the supply chain that is really driving the movement.
I think he said something very important, that we do not, or we underestimate the effort involved in individual farmers' decision to change behavior. We have, typically the woman would have heard it in her self-help group. Then she'll discuss in the household. So straight away the husband will say, what do you know? So it takes her time to convince her husband. It could be few months, it could be few years. And I just met a woman farmer. She told me it took her 3 years to convince her husband. Then within the household, there's a lot of discussion. It doesn't happen. What Keith said takes so much time. But in our case, because the women self-help groups are there, so they'll go and counsel the husband. Look, it's good, why don't you join hands and, we'll be there to support her. So that kind of solidarity around this is the key. In about 7 years, we are able to take it to 14% farmers. When people are still struggling with 1%, 2%. And I know that in 7 years, I'll take it to 100%. Because this community architecture is the driver. And it also forces us to be on our toes, to make improvements, to see that they get better value for, even though I may scold them, but I still want them to get better returns, if there is a way to get it. So the energy from them drives us, then our energy in turn drives it. So it's what we are, learning from them, gaining from them, also gives us more energy, or the desire to collaborate with so many institutions to offer more value to them. That in turn provides more energy to the program. So creating a virtuous cycle instead of crying over, okay, this didn't happen, that didn't happen.
We are unfortunately out of time, but I love ending on regeneration, community, solidarity. Thank you so much, Vijay and Keith, and thank you to the Agri-Food Pavilion for hosting us. And we are going to have another session right after this with Dorothy Shaver, so please stick around. Thank you.
Thank you. That was amazing, Kenzie.
Not Danny. Stick around. You better stick around.
I'll stick around.
Hey, Dorothy.
Hi. I wish I had an espresso martini.
If you find one, bring to me.
Yeah, can we start a little party in
Just
here?
a little feedback. It's a gift.
Thank you, sir. That was a great conversation.
Yeah.
Hi.
So have a good time.